I have always been here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, geeks and nerds and ambassadors everywhere, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing. I am, of course, your host, the Ambassador. And tonight, we are going to be beginning a series of reviews on to say this is a favorite series of movies is an understatement. This is a series of films that is iconic in cinema. It's at the benchmark for fantasy films and film in general going forward from its time. Tonight, we look back to the early 2000s, to an epic both of the written word and of the silver screen. Peter Jackson's and JRR Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. And if this is your first visit to the Ambassadorial Wing, I hope you enjoy your time here. I hope you enjoy the review. I will be dropping the link here shortly in the chat for anyone that wants to pop in and join the discussion. I will warn you all, this will be a rather lengthy review because we will be going over the first film tonight. We'll be reviewing The Fellowship of the Ring. And an early shout out to the chat, my good friend, my fellow council member, Mountains of Elysium. Good evening, my friend. Very late evening for you because you are across the pond, and appreciate you popping by, bud. But yeah, as always, make sure you smash that like button, share this out with your friends, particularly if they are fans of The Lord of the Rings, and make sure you participate in the chat tonight because we're going to be doing a deep dive, talking about the production, talking about the movie, talking about its origins, of course, the books itself. And yes, this review will primarily focus on the well, Elysium, you beat me to the punch. This will be focusing on the extended cut or the director's cut of Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and Return of the King. We will be covering the extended cuts over these next 3 weeks, these next 3 Saturday nights. And to kick off tonight's discussion, I want to give my initial thoughts before I do drop the link in the chat. I will be perfectly candid with you all. Before 2001, I had never heard of The Lord of the Rings. I had heard of The Hobbit because I had to read The Hobbit when I was in high school. And I was not necessarily aware that there was a follow-up. But when the lead up to this film was being pushed out, when the trailers were being released for this thing called The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, I was like, holy freaking crap. Like, I love fantasy films. I grew up watching fantasy films as a kid of the 80s and 90s. I mean, the 80s itself had some of the greatest fantasy films of all time. I mean, you name it, I watched it. The Dark Crystal, Krull, I mean, Dragon Slayer, the Conan movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But this was something wholly different from what we had ever seen before, myself in particular. I had never seen anything of this scope and scale before. And the films had a truly iconic and very well-rounded cast. I mean, let's just go down the roster here. I mean, you had Sir Ian McKellen as Gandalf the Grey. You had Elijah Wood as Frodo Baggins. You had Sean Astin as Samwise Gamgee. You had Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn. You had a relative newcomer, Orlando Bloom, as Legolas. You had Sean Bean, who would later go on to be one of the most interesting characters in Game of Thrones as Boromir. You had Dominic Monaghan. You had as I think it was Brandybuck. I mean, of course, you also had John Rhys Davies as Gimli. You had Sir Christopher Lee as Saruman, for heaven's sake. You had Liv Tyler as Arwen. You had Hugo Weaving, who had just come off of a major hit with the first Matrix film as Elrod of the elf. This was a quite literally star-studded cast. And like I said, we had never seen a fantasy film on this scale or scope before, not to mention they had done animated adaptations of the Lord of the Rings films back, I think it was in the 70s or 80s, but no one had attempted ever before 2001 to try and do a live action adaptation of JRR Tolkien's epic, The Lord of the Rings, all 3 books. So, yeah, Elysium, very, very true. And Air World Order, good to see you, bud. One, yeah. For those of you that might have seen my little clip that I put out on my Instagram and my Twitter and my YouTube and everything, I efforted to do a faithful reading of the full ring spell. And if you haven't caught that and everything, it is up on my channel and everything, my YouTube channel. And for those of you that are here right now, well, let's open tonight's discussion and review. Yes, George. Yeah, that scene is absolutely positive. As much as I love Lord of the Rings, that scene from Clerks 2 with Randall going on that rant and saying that Star Wars was better than Lord of the Rings and making that geek so angry that he actually threw up. It was yes, George, that scene is absolutely is an iconic. But for those of you that may have not caught my little teaser for this evening, I will effort to do it here. From JRR Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, The One Ring Spell. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky. 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone. 9 for mortal men doomed to die. 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all. 1 ring to find them. 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. And to the chat, PLK Entertainment and Jeff B. Gentlemen, good evening. Good to see you both. And thank you for popping in. Beans, I've got so many of you in here right now. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link for any of you that might want to join me this evening and join the discussion. So give me just a moment and I will effort to put that into the chat. And there we go. Hang on 1 second. Let me. Okay, there we go. And yeah, I'll pop up your comments here, guys. Sorry. Yeah, PLK. Hi, Ambassador. Hope you're doing well. The trilogy Fellowship probably stands as the beginning, middle, and end. Return of the King is still my favorite. PLK. Yes, absolutely, positively, cannot disagree with that. That comment there. And well, I'm building my own fellowship this evening, and I'll pop up your comment here. Early 2000 movies like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and Spider-Man solidified my love for movies and geek culture. George, yeah, I was right. I'm right there with you, bud. But I cannot do this on my own tonight. tonight I will be building my own fellowship and give a very warm ambassadorial welcome to a man who has his own little order that he is building, the one and only Aaron of Aaron's World Order.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Yeah, I'll be your
Aaron,
Sam.
good evening.
I'll be your Sam to your Frodo.
Yeah, let's not be
Not that
always.
way.
And Jeff B always arrives precisely when you mean to. Yes, indeed. Well, Elysium, if you're able and you've got enough coffee by your side and you want to join for a little bit, links in the chat, my friend. So hop on in here. But yeah, Aaron, I don't want this just to be me. Your thoughts on Lord of the Rings, particularly Fellowship of the Ring. Everything we're gonna just to let you all know, we're gonna be covering one movie a week over the next 3 weeks. I want to give every movie its due time and its due attention, so we'll be focusing on Fellowship. But Aaron, your thoughts, my friend.
Wow, what can I say about this movie? Well, my father was a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so I remember with him, right? So I remember with him. This movie was, the whole trilogy was epic, but this movie that got us into it was just one big epic story. Like, if you read the books and stuff, like this, it takes you on a journey about all these characters, everything like you have in this one movie, like with the wizards and whatever you call them, orcs, elves, dwarfs, hobbits, the Nazgul, like the tagline you just said about the rings being for the certain races, like the dwarfs and elves and the men, and if you know those 9 men, those are Nazgul, right? I can't hear you.
Yeah, the ring rates. Yeah, I had myself muted for a second.
Yeah, so. The ring rates Nazgul. Yeah, those are the 9 men doomed, as you said, doomed to die. And if you know the story about the elves and why the dwarves rejected those rings is because Sauron. This is actually from the book, not from Lord of the Rings. It's from the Silmarillion, I believe. Sauron manipulated, was it Salvador, something like that?
The way that from the Silmarillion that gives the origin story, that might be another stream in and of itself.
Yeah,
everything, because I love that book.
He wasn't Sauron, right? Because Sauron could was able to transform himself, right? He was able to transform himself.
Well, here's the thing with the dwarves, their will was so strong and so indomitable that they could not be bent to Sauron's will. Ergo, also the fact was the rings themselves were lost to time and everything. The different lords that owned them, they became misplaced or lost or whatever.
And the elves just didn't distrust them because I think Sauron was the time was corrupting, was tricking an elf to make the rings. I think
they delve a little bit into that in the Lord of the Rings games for the PS4.
Yes,
Shadow of Mordor.
He was known as Anatar, Lord of Gifts, right? And the dwarves never trusted. I mean, the elves never trusted him because the elves. If you've seen the opening film, the elves were Galadriel was one of them because he's one of the most.
Galadriel, Erlendil, and I can't remember Sidron, the shipwright. Those were the three.
They never trusted Anatar.
Well, they never trusted Sauron, and the reason why, excuse me, the reason they never trusted Sauron is because of what Sauron did to the men of Numenor. He corrupted and destroyed.
Because he corrupted the king at the time. Because he made the king jealous of the immortals, of the elves being immortal, and the god. Well, not technically gods, but in his Tolkien story, they're considered gods. There's gods at the time.
Yeah, the gods of Middle Earth. Yeah.
Because they're immortal, right? That's why.
Well,
That's why you can never go to that island again. That's why. That's why you can never go there again. Like,
well, we're getting a little bit off a topic
yeah.
here. I mean, I don't mind to talk about this.
I think that's gonna be an Amazon series. It's part of the.
The new series, the Amazon,
Yeah.
it very much deals with the second and third. I think it's going to focus on the second and third age of, and that's going to definitely be digging into the Silmarillion for I would wager. So, and I'm definitely, unlike some pessimists on YouTube here on YouTube, I'm very much looking forward to the Amazon Lord of the Rings series, because if they're bringing the Silmarillion to life in live action, I am all for that. I am absolutely positively all for that.
Because if you watch Lord of the Rings, because I'll be honest, if you never know anything about Lord of the Rings and you watch those movies, but that opening sequence, like I know opening sequence, like how did those get those rings? Who gave it to them? Like nobody.
Well, they do. The great thing. Okay. The great thing about Fellowship, they do such a good job of establishing the world, introducing you to the characters, giving you the stakes, and giving us one hell of an opening. There's no
bad character. There's no bad character. Every character is like phenomenal.
Well, here's the thing. What Jackson and Philippa Boyens and Jackson's wife were able to do was they took Tolkien's books and they converted it into a manuscript that could be shot for a movie. Elysium, dude. Elysium, dude. Honestly, I'm not gonna try and do it this month, but maybe sometime next year, maybe sometime in 2022, once they get closer to releasing the Amazon Lord of the Rings series, I might actually do a couple of streams talking about the Silmarillion. And dude, I would try to do that as an afternoon stream, because I know for you that would be easier. You need to go back and reread Silmarillion, dude. It is.
I just know Galadriel's in it. That's all the characters.
Well, here's the interesting thing with the Silmarillion. And we'll get back on the. We'll get back on topic. Excuse me. It establishes the world. It introduces you to so much lore. It is so lore heavy. I mean, the Silmarillion is so lore heavy. It's like what a lot of people describe it as. It's like the Bible of Middle Earth.
Especially the first age.
And here's the crazy thing. The only characters that carry over from the Silmarillion that we see in the Lord of the Rings proper is Galadriel, Elrond, and Gandalf. That's it. Those are the only characters that carry over directly from the Silmarillion into Lord of the Rings. But PLK, and also to the chat, Lucky Day, good to see you, man, and appreciate you stopping in tonight. So,
and I'll just tell you that opening scene with the signal to end the Second Age, with everybody united to fight Sauron. You see how powerful Sauron is?
What Jackson and everybody that was working around him, this was a passion project for them.
Yeah.
This for them was something that they had worked towards for years, and they had gone to so many studios to try and get this done. And then they
finally afraid of the cost too much.
But here's the thing. They went to New Line Cinemas, which was its own independent studio at the time. It was still kind of a subsidiary of Turner Entertainment, but it was more or less its own studio. And the execs were like, "There's no way you can do this as two movies. You're going to have to do it as three." And they're like, "Well, that's what we wanted to do. We just didn't think anybody would go for it." But New Line did. New Line took think about this. New Line took a huge risk monetarily, because if this movie didn't hit, if the first movie didn't hit, it could have potentially sunk the whole dang studio. It could have, because the first movie itself was so ambitious.
Yeah,
because they were pulling directly from Tolkien's book everything that he wrote. And the crazy thing, Tolkien was not a professional writer. He was
No.
not an author. He was a linguist. He was a professor at Oxford. I mean, and a well-respected one. But he was not a writer. Now
Did you watch the movie based on him?
He was very, very good friends with C.S. Lewis, and we know what C.S. Lewis had done in his career as a writer.
Did you watch the movie based on him? That came out like a few years ago.
Oh, Tolkien? No, I never had the chance, but I heard it was actually really good.
Yeah,
I've wanted to. I never got it.
The way he was able to come up with languages and stuff.
Yeah.
He's probably like one of the first able to do that.
Well, Tolkien was a very interesting fella. He truly was. And what he wanted to do with, and Jeff B, reread the Silmarillion with the Guide to Middle Earth as a reference worked better, I would imagine. Yeah. The thing about Tolkien is he wanted to reestablish the whole genre of fantasy and fairy stories for England, his home country.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, he succeeded. He really did. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, now granted, like I said, when the movies were announced, I had never heard of the books. I mean, I had heard The Hobbit. I had to read The Hobbit.
Yeah,
I had read The Hobbit when I was in high school, and I really enjoyed The Hobbit. Don't get me wrong.
I enjoyed The Hobbit too.
But with to focus just specifically on Fellowship of the Ring, there were so many moving parts in just this one film. You had to establish the stakes of the conflict. Yeah. You had to establish the world and make it relatable. You had to help people understand it and keep it simple. I mean, because the Lord of the Rings books, they are thick. They are dense, heavy books, but especially the Fellowship of the Ring, and there is so much dialogue. And
Return of the King book was a lot of pages.
Yeah, but the thing with Return of the King was it was relatively speaking, it was somewhat shorter. Yeah, but what made up the big bulk of Return of the King, we'll get into this in a couple of weeks, was all the appendices and all of the lore that filled in what happened after the events of Return of the King.
Yeah, the Fourth Age.
The bits and pieces of the Fourth Age.
Yeah.
But with Fellowship, you had to establish the main characters, and there's a lot of main characters. I mean, you
did a good job with that. Sometimes it's hard to do.
Everybody.
Yeah,
and in particular with the extended cut, they were able to add back in a lot more than that they could with the theatrical cut. And a lot of people regard the theatrical, the director's cut or the extended cut as the definitive version, which I agree. I mean, you can watch the theatrical version. There's nothing wrong with that.
It won't take away from the movie.
But you get...
It's not like BVS. It's not like BVS.
Yeah, exactly. But they add so much more in to with the extended cut for Fellowship. You get more time with Aragorn and the Hobbits. You get more time with Aragorn and Arwen. You get more time with Frodo and Bilbo and Bilbo and so on. And I completely forgot about somebody that we had, an actor that we lost just a couple of years ago, the late great Ian Holm as Bilbo Baggins. I mean,
Ian Holm and
and
we lost, I don't know how many years ago, but we also lost Salmon, the actor for Salmon. I can't believe I can't believe I blanked on that. Yeah,
Sir Christopher Lee. Yeah.
Well, I can't believe I blanked on it. I'm sorry.
the crazy thing was, Lee was one of the only people that had ever met and talked on a somewhat regular basis with Tolkien in real life. And his portrayal of Saruman is perfect. I mean, I mean, I don't want to like go completely fanboy on this movie,
It's
but
hard not to.
but this is honestly, I very rarely ever give a movie this moniker,
Mhm.
but Fellowship just by itself, but the trilogy as a whole, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It is as perfect and faithful as an adaptation of a series of books like Lord of the Rings that we will ever get. Truly.
You can't do a reboot of this in the movies. No, it's just not
No,
possible.
this is one series of movies that
Yeah.
they will never 20, 30, 40 years from now, they will never be able to touch this because
No.
Jackson and the people that worked with him, they will never be able to top this.
No.
I mean, they could maybe do the CGI a little bit better, but aside from that,
Okay.
no.
Can I just say?
Mhm.
Can I just say, getting Viggo instead of the other guy? Because remember, Viggo wasn't supposed to be Aragorn. It's supposed to be a guy from Extraordinary Gentleman, right? Who played Dorian Gray. Supposed to be that actor. Was supposed to be
yeah,
right. I think that's the right choice.
yeah. Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn or Elisar. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was perfect.
Yeah, yeah. There's no bad role or anybody. Everybody had a perfect role from Gimli. Like, how can you not love
John Rhys Davies as Gimli. Yeah.
And Orlando Bloom as like
Wow.
you know this.
And
Like,
you know
we
the
didn't know
crazy thing. Yeah, the crazy thing was this was one of Orlando Bloom's first roles he ever did.
This
Aside
got
from
him.
this,
That's what
I
got
think
him into more Hollywood stuff. Lord of the Rings.
he had done. I think he might have done, or we came out the same year. He was in Black Hawk Down.
Oh, really?
But yeah, Orlando Bloom was in Black Hawk Down. I'm pretty sure.
And then he got into Then he got into Pirates, right? Like during after this.
Yeah, he got his roles with Pirates of the Caribbean. I think based off of his performance here. You know, I mean, Sean Bean
he hasn't been doing much like.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah.
No, he hasn't been doing big stuff from I can probably gather. I haven't really looked into it all that much, but honestly, yeah. And I'll bring up Elysium's comment here real quick. Yeah, Peter Jackson actually had a cameo, I think, in every film.
Yes, he was in Bree. Yes,
he was in Bree. He was one of the guys on the street in Two Towers. He was a soldier. He threw a spear there at Helm's Deep. I can't remember if he had a cameo in Return of the King. I'd have to go back and relook. So
yeah, I remember that. And I remember him.
But the thing that really impressed me with these films is they made this world feel real. They made it feel authentic, even though you have to realize it is a fantasy setting. But even for a fantasy setting, it does have a touch of realism to it. This world feels lived in. It feels old. And all the techniques that they used, many of what they call bigatures, the big models, the big scale models that they built of different locations. I mean, granted, obviously they had used CGI for this. They used all sorts of camera tricks to trick in the scale of the different characters, because you had normal sized humans, you had dwarves, you had hobbits, obviously. Of course,
for Hobbit Town, they had to make the set for the houses for the hobbits.
Yes,
that was incredible.
Yeah, I'll bring up Elysium's comment here. I will admit
Tom
there
Bombadil?
Well, yeah, and I can't. I will admit there are several changes made from the books I was not happy with, but listening to the commentary track, I understand the reasons, as they did such a fantastic job.
You know what trilogy did that? The Hobbit trilogy took liberties with the book.
Well, not only that, it should have been maybe one movie or two movies at the most. It never should have been a trilogy.
The Sauron stuff and Dumbledore was never in the Hobbit.
Yeah, they dug that out of the appendices, I think, from the
Yeah, I know why
uh
they did it, but if because the casuals won't know that, if the casuals always watch Lord of the Rings, but for I know why they did that, but for us, we know they were never like that stuff was never in the
yeah,
Hobbit.
exactly. Okay, thank you, Elysium. And Return of the King, Jackson was the pirate that Legolas shot with an arrow on the Corsair's ship. Okay. All right, thank you, Elysium. I appreciate that because I
Yeah.
honestly couldn't remember what his cameo was. But the thing you have to understand, the thing we have to understand as the audience is when you're adapting books, there is as dense and um heavy and so full of plot and narrative. You've got to make concessions. You've got to make cuts somewhere. Otherwise, the movie's just going to get bogged down.
Or it'd be like 4 to 5 hour long.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I mean, the extended cuts alone, Fellowship, I think clocks in at 4 hours. I mean, I think
yeah,
all three of them, the extended cuts clock in at 4 hours. But I think Return of the King, the extended cuts like 4.5 hours. So
yeah, you can't put everything. You can't put everything.
no, you can't. And honestly, here's the thing. I do understand hardcore fans not being happy that they cut out Tom Bombadil, but here's the thing.
It wasn't
Aside
that
from his one
relevant.
appear,
Yeah,
aside from his one appearance in the Fellowship of the Ring, he never appears again.
yeah, he's not really relevant to the whole thing. Like that's
No,
just
he's not. He's not really necessary.
there's only one. There's
So
only one theory about him that's not been proven. I think he's been around for a long time. He's not necessarily what he appears to be.
yeah, but honestly, here's the thing. I mentioned this before you came in, Aaron. Being someone who was unfamiliar with the books, I went into this somewhat blind, honestly. But the great thing for me was I watched the movies and then I went back and I actually got one year for Christmas. Mother Ambassador, she knew how much I was loving these movies, and she's like, "Well, they've got um, sets of the books and everything. Do you want me to get you a set for your Christmas one year?" I'm like, yeah, definitely. I did definitely get me those books. And the crazy thing was, it was one of the first editions that they did with like the film art,
Hmm.
and it was actually the set I have. I'll put out a picture on my Twitter or something at some point. The box art is of the Black Riders of the Nazgul on horseback
Nice,
as
nice.
they're chasing Arwen. And and I've heard people. Um, yeah, I'll bring up Elysium's comment here. Tom Bombadil would not fit in the movies. He was a part of it. He was part of a different tone that was not the core of Jackson's vision of the book. Yeah, Elysium, exactly.
I
And
love that
I'll be
comment, Jeff. I love that comment, Jeff. Rudy
yeah,
did well.
Samwise Gamgee. He was the MVP of this series. And I'll bring up Jeff B. Rudy, yeah, because here's the thing: Sean Astin, obviously he played Rudy in the movie Rudy, but he was Samwise Gamgee. So
It's a good movie. It was a great movie, Rudy.
I've actually never seen it.
It's a good movie.
I have heard of it. I have heard good things about it, but I've never actually seen
It
it.
has John Favreau in it, like one of his first actual things as an
Really?
actor. Yeah,
Huh, cool. So, um, but the thing about Fellowship that always one of the main things about Fellowship that always fascinated me was the relationships. And even if you had not read The Hobbit, the way they depicted Bilbo and Gandalf's relationship, their friendship,
yeah.
it was very respectful. And the one thing I will say that I did like about the Hobbit films, it does show us the basis for their friendship and for their lifelong friendship that will stretch all the way into the Return of the King, when Bilbo is an old man. And you see you see the care that Bilbo has for Frodo. Now, here's the interesting thing. I don't know if you know this, Aaron. You probably do if you've read the books. In the books, Frodo and Bilbo are actually cousins. It just so happens that Bilbo is the elder of the cousins. But
Yeah,
in
and
the
this is your
movie,
uncle.
they
Yeah.
they changed it to an uncle, and honestly, I liked that change
I think it's better.
because who are we to argue with Tolkien
Yeah.
himself? He was the one that wrote this. But I think for the theme of the film, it does serve the narrative much better. And speaking of a good friend, happy to see once again Mr. Ace Mowick. Ace, it is good to see you, bud. Appreciate you popping in tonight. Tonight, my friend, we're not talking Star Wars. I know how much you love Star Wars, but tonight and next couple of Saturday nights, well, as you could probably figure out, we're talking Lord of the Rings. So appreciate you popping in.
I'm sure he likes it.
Though, unless you were just an absolute positive cynic, how can you not like Lord of the Rings? Unless you're someone that does not like fantasy films or fantasy books, or has even the remotest
Star Wars is
iota
technically
of
Final Fantasy. Star Wars is fantasy, right? It's just not.
Well, it's space fantasy.
Yeah.
Elysium's coming here. I've read the books before I saw the movies. I read through the night during a storm, wind howling outside the window, and when I read the section where they were being chased to the ferry. Oh, dude.
That's perfect setting right there.
It is. I mean, and if you think about the way they brought that sequence to life, you've got these 4 little hobbits. Well, let's see. Frodo, Sam,
Pippin, and Merry,
Meriadoc, and Peregrine. Yeah. I always liked their names. I always liked Meriadoc and Peregrine's names. I know they had their nicknames. I like their nicknames too, but I like their proper names because they had a kind of nobility to them, which I kind of like.
Even though they didn't act like that. No,
at the
beginning.
Yeah, but the great thing is, and we'll see this as we go through the reviews over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Especially with Meriadoc and Peregrine, Merry and Pippin, they grow up, they evolve, they change, and they are changed by war. They are changed by their experiences by leaving the Shire, and so, Oh, Ace, dude. I dig the Drake's trilogy. I've read the books and the Hobbit. Still need to read the Silmarillion and the others Tolkien. Ace, if you ever whenever you get around to reading the Silmarillion, get a hold of me, because I think maybe next year I'm going to try and do a couple of streams talking about the Silmarillion, particularly when it leads up to the release of the Amazon series, because from what I understand, the Amazon series is very much going to focus on the events that are depicted in the Silmarillion. So just a heads up, Ace, the Silmarillion is a very dense, very heavy.
Which I'll tell you this: the Tolkien estate wouldn't allow anybody to do the second age, and the first age till now.
Yeah, that's very. Yeah. So, Ace, and hey, Ace, I'm not saying I'm the authority on the Silmarillion or on the universe of Lord of the Rings, but
it's hard.
But if you want somebody that can help guide you through it, if you've got questions, get a hold of me. If I can't answer it, I will look up the answers for you. There's actually a channel out there. As with a lot of the things that I love, I always refer to other channels and everything for reference and for listening to Ace. I'm gonna say this with all sincerity. It might seem like a bit of a dense read, and it is. But once you finish it, you will understand the world that Tolkien was establishing so much better. I say that with all sincerity. So, um, I hope I can't wait to hear your thoughts on the Silmarillion, because it's a wonderful book. It really truly is. I mean, I don't read as much as I used to, because, well, I got kind of burnt out when I was in seminary. But every once in a great while, I'll pull out a book, and I think I need to pull out my copy of the Silmarillion again. I really do. I think I need to pull it out again and read it, as well as The Hobbit. I actually got a signed copy of The Hobbit that was signed by John Howe, who was one
Wow.
of the conceptual artists for the Lord of the Rings, and he's done a lot of artwork for a lot of novelizations and of different. Oh no, it's seen a few videos about things like Alcagon the Black, Melkor, Morgoth. Yeah, Ace. Like I said, you're gonna be in for a treat. Now, Ace, just a friendly suggestion. Don't try and read it all in one sitting. You very well may get lost. I would do it a little bit at a time, because the Silmarillion, while it is good, is very, very dense, but in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Oh, Elysium, dude. I just started rereading The Lord of the Rings. I'm up to the top. I'm Soul.
What about Lotr? What about or what's the second breakfast? Third breakfast?
Elevensies, afternoon tea, dinner, luncheon.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows about those, Pippin. Here's the crazy thing: as heavy and as serious as these movies gets at times, they're still able to weave some humor in to lighten the mood occasionally. But I will say this: one of the most fascinating characters in this entire series, particularly in Fellowship, has to be Aragorn.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, dude. Okay, Ace. Good. All right. Ace, like I said, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. I truly do think you'll enjoy it. If you love The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, you'll love the Silmarillion. So, but as I was saying, one of the most interesting characters for me in this entire series, but in particular with the Fellowship, is Aragorn, because he has one of the most interesting journeys of everyone in this trilogy of movies, in this trilogy of books, even. And the crazy thing was, Viggo Mortensen came in right out of the he came in right fresh off of the plane, got into wardrobe, and he didn't even have a full beard and everything by the time they started shooting his scenes for the first movie.
Yeah.
And it was actually his son that talked him into going in for the part, because Jackson and them wanted him, but he was on the fence about it, and his son,
Yeah, I remember
son.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how many times I have watched the extra. Excuse me. Watch the extra features and the making of for the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and
I think they
because
said the actor they had was too young for Aragorn. They felt was too young. Because I think
Aragorn.
Aragorn is a physical peak, but knowing if you saw the second movie and you saw extended edition, he's actually 87 years old.
Yes. Yeah, he's 80. Yeah, that's one of the little things that they were able to add back in for the extended cut of to the Two Towers.
Yeah, that's when Eowyn found out, oh, you're a descendant of Numerians or whatever, right? The doing thing.
He is a descendant of Numenorians blessed with long life. Yeah. He is one of the last Numenorians, actually.
So I think
And
that's why they recast the actor, because the actor they had was maybe too young for Aragorn. Like really too young.
that's a possibility too.
Yeah.
But Aragorn's journey, particularly in the first movie, there's a line of dialogue spoken by Viggo's son had a role in the Two Towers. He was at Helm's Deep. Oh, okay, Elysium. I didn't know that, so thank you for popping that in there. Appreciate it. It's an exchange between the hobbits, and they make mention of the fact that a servant of the enemy of Sauron would have seemed fairer but felt fouler. But in Aragorn's case, he looked fouler, but he seemed fairer. He seemed like a decent person. He didn't seem like someone that worked for Sauron. And you of course have the love affair between him and Arwen. And I have to say it, I envy Viggo Mortensen to a certain degree. I should say past tense. I envied Viggo Mortensen because I'm actually, as all of you know, I am very happy with Madam Ambassador. But the fact that he got to kiss Liv Tyler on multiple occasions, I've been like, damn, you lucky duck. Well, and the crazy thing is that was another change of thing.
Daughter.
Huh?
Steve Tyler's daughter.
Yeah, I know. And we've seen Steven Tyler. We've seen what he looks like, and we're like,
yeah.
You made that? Yeah. She must have gone over for looks from her mom. Yeah, because I mean, Steven Tyler, he's a great guy. He seems like a great guy. He's got a very good singing voice and everything. But his face looks like 50 miles of bad railroad track.
He did a lot of stuff. He did a lot of stuff. Definitely did a lot of drugs.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
Yeah, I love the relationship too.
But yeah,
and her father, like,
oh my gosh, Hugo Weaving as Elrod, and we had just seen him like a year before, or a couple years before this, as Agent Smith in the first Matrix. I mean, Hugo Weaving as Elrod, you're like, wait a minute, you were in the Matrix. How are you playing a good guy here? But that just speaks to Hugo Weaving's range as an actor. He can play different roles, and he can do it well. And granted, Elrod's part in the movie is relatively small. He has maybe 2 or 3 scenes at most,
but they're important.
Yeah, they're all important, and in particular the council meeting between everybody, with everybody there, and
not trusting men, because he did say to Gandalf he didn't trust men, because he did mention the fall of Numenor, I believe, and he was there when Aragorn's ancestor.
It's sealed. Well, no, because here's the thing: during the prologue, with Galadriel narrating all of it, you see Elrod there, and he was actually and Jeff B. Yes, Hugo was V in V for Vendetta too. Yeah, and he was great in that. I absolutely love. That's one of my all-time favorite roles of his. But you see it in a flashback after Isildur cuts the one ring off. Not just cuts the ring off, but cuts several of Sauron's fingers off of his hand. And Elrod
which doesn't technically kill Sauron; it just kills his physical form.
Yeah, exactly. It destroys his physical form.
That's why he told him to destroy it. Yeah,
they're there in the heart of Mount Doom, and
it corrupts them.
Well, and
it corrupts them. It says him as Doom, right?
Well, no, essentially,
Yeah.
Elrod tells Isildur he to throw it into the fire, into the lava of the volcano. And Isildur. Now here's the crazy thing. Now here's the crazy thing though. The actor, yes, he does speak that, but that wasn't the actor's voice that says no. It was
Sauron's,
actually
wasn't it?
it was actually Hugo Weaving's
Oh,
voice.
really?
They dubbed it that one word, him saying no.
Can you imagine that?
And to replace the voice of the actor who played Isildur. And then of course we get in the extended cut, the extended version, we find out how Isildur loses the ring. He's he's on horseback, and him and his entourage are ambushed by a group of orcs. They're obviously loyal to Sauron, and they kill Isildur. And then, of course, you see
it goes into the river, I believe.
It goes. His body's in the river, and then the ring goes into the river, and then eventually, a certain little fella by the name of Smeagol, aka Gollum.
Well, actually, his brother found it.
Deagle. Yeah, we learned about that in the Return of the King at the beginning, and we'll get into that in a couple weeks when I.
What I love about this, I'll just say this: when we know, because the sword that defeated Sauron, right, was at Elrond, right? Was I forget the city's name? I'm blanking. I'm sorry. Like where the sword was there, right? Where the elves were, right? It was broken, right? It was broken, and Aragorn takes a look at it, right? Because Boromir was there taking a look at it and he's like, and Boromir, like the Gondorians kind of gave up on the idea of the king returning, right? They kind of gave up on the idea, but the elves didn't, and Boromir just walks away, and Aragorn takes a look at it because he knows Isildur is obviously they're related. Right? They're like, I don't know how many generations, because Isildur is like years and years, maybe like centuries.
Yeah, several. It was if I remember Galadriel's narration at the beginning, it was 2,500 years.
Okay,
from the events of the Battle of the Last Alliance to where we enter. Because
So I was just gonna say, you can finish it after I said, because when you took a look at the sword, you see Aragorn come up, and she notices that Aragorn's worried because he fears that the same thing will happen to him that it did to Isildur.
Yeah,
because of his blood, because the blood went through his veins.
Well, yeah, because Aragorn is a direct descendant of Isildur. He is a son of Numenor. That is his. That is his lineage. So, but eventually Aragorn, and we'll get into that when we come to it in Return of the King.
That's such an epic scene in there when Return of the King when he gets the sword. I'm sorry, that's like one of the best things.
When he gets when Anduril is reforged by Elrod's sons, and like I said, we'll get into that in a couple of weeks. But we see in what we see of how we see Aragorn here. He sees himself as little more than a ranger, nothing more, nothing less. But there are so many people around him, particularly Arwen.
He crashes himself. He crashes himself up being the king.
He doubts himself.
Yeah.
He very much does doubt himself just as much as Frodo doubts himself. So, and I do want to bring up Elysium's comment here. I did find it strange that Elrod's reaction to man being he himself is half human. His brother had chosen a moral life and is Aragorn's ancestor. Elysium, I don't know if Elrod's brother is a relation of his. Now, Aragorn can trace his lineage back to both Isildur and Elendil, who we see in the prologue, and we actually see their statues, the Argonath, towards the end of Fellowship. If I remember the lineage correctly, Elrond,
his brother was the first king of Numenor.
His brother was the first king of Arnor when
Oh no, yeah,
his brother was the first king of Arnor
yes.
in Middle Earth. If I remember correctly, Elrod's mother was human. She was mortal. Let's just put it that way. His father is Elven. That's why he's referred to, at least in the books, as Elrod half Elven, because he is only half elf.
I mean,
But
there's a lot of stuff.
he retains more of his elven attributes than he does the human.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in like Lord of the Rings on like the family tree, you know, like
Yeah,
from
there
it's like
is a well,
a lot of stuff to uncover, unpack there.
well, and that was the fantastic thing of what Tolkien did.
Yeah.
He fleshed out the world in such a way that made it actually somewhat easier for Jackson and the production crew to go in and create this world, create this style of each race, of the elven race, of the hobbits, of the dwarves, and so on. And then eventually we'll get into the Gondorians and down and the orcs and so on, and even the orcs that existed there in Dwarendalf and Moria. And you know, you look at all the work and effort that it took to bring these movies, and particularly this first movie to life. I mean, this first movie to life. I mean, think about the different locations that they had to either build or scout out and build on. I mean, you had Hobbiton, which we spent a good amount of time. Yeah, Elysium, exactly. The fact that he is of his status half elven was what allowed Arwen to choose a moral life. Yes, because if you think about Arwen herself, being her father's half elven, she is also of that same lineage as well. But to kind of get back to what I was saying, you think about all the different locations we go to in this movie. Just this one movie alone, it was quite a task, and it was one that I say again was carried off masterfully.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to welcome another familiar face to the chat. Everybody give a very warm ambassadorial welcome to Mr. Zach Leary. Zach, good evening,
What's up, guys? How's everybody doing?
Doing okay?
Good.
Good to see you, Zach.
Yeah, go ahead. Please continue.
Well, I was just saying, okay. Well, in terms of fellowship, I mean, obviously we spent a good deal of time in Hobbiton. That took a lot of. I mean, obviously they had to scout out the route location. I mean, obviously the majority of this movie, if not the entirety of this movie, was all shot in New Zealand, Peter Jackson's home country. And I mean, you had the Tower of Orthanc, Saruman's base of operations. You had Rivendell. You had them going into the bowels of Moria. That was a hell of a thing. I mean, and then you had obviously them going into Lothlorien, where Galadriel and her group is, and of course you end up on the.
Don't forget they went to Gondor. Or Gandalf went to Gondor. Minas Tirith at the beginning.
You see Minas Tirith briefly, and you see him in one little room in, I imagine, one of the libraries there in Minas Tirith. Yeah. But and not to mention all the outdoor locales that they go through throughout the entire their journey. And yes, Elysium, thank you. Also the little town of Bree, even though we're there very briefly. I mean, Amansul, the watchtower of Amansul, where one of the Palantirs used to be. The set design and detail. I mean, everything that they did was so meticulous, and it was just for someone that is as I said, has been a longtime fan of fantasy films, whether they were original properties or they were based on a book or something along those lines. it's truly impressive and inspiring to see what a group of creatives can do when they set their mind to it and they're given the proper support from a studio. And as I said before, despite what some naysayers may have to say about the Amazon series, I'm going to at least give it a fair shake before I give my judgment on it. I mean, I know there have been rumors about this and that and the other, but honestly, I quite frankly don't care. I'll base it on my own judgment. I'll watch it for myself, and then I'll give my point of view on it. And if this is what we believe it is a live action adaptation of the Silmarillion. I'm all for that because this is a period in Lord of the Rings lore that I have wanted to see be brought to life. So
And it's best they're doing it through it as a TV show, because if you did it through it,
yes.
you'll need more than 3 movies.
Oh yeah, they're going to need a lot more than 3 movies.
Yeah.
So, Zach, I've been going for a little bit. The floor is yours.
My thoughts on Lord of the Rings.
Well, we're talking specifically Fellowship of the Ring tonight. So,
are we? Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing this as a 3-part series. I'm not trying to jump. I'm not jumbling it all into one review. No way.
All right, gotcha.
There's just too much.
Well, I mean, one of the best opening films to a trilogy ever, right? I think we can agree on that. The execution on the film is really masterfully done. Just visually, just in every way, character-wise, script-wise, writing-wise, just phenomenal. I would say one of the best fantasy films of all time, no doubt.
Yes. I can't disagree with that. Well, for the longest time we had not gotten any like really good Marcus, very funny. Whatever. We had not gotten any really good fantasy films out of Hollywood for a long time. I mean, it was a dormant genre in film in a lot of ways. And
does Princess Bride count? What would you call
No,
that?
the worst one. I think came out the one that came out like, was it 99 2000 was like Dungeons and Dragons. That was so bad.
Oh,
I
good
never
grief!
saw that.
Be glad you. Here's the thing, Zach. Here's the thing. I actually did a watch party for that movie for Dungeons and Dragons. I know it's one of those movies. It's so bad, it's funny. If you get my drift, it's
you know
so
what's
cringy.
funny?
Oh, 2003 that came out. It was after, but it's still pretty bad.
I think I've heard of it, and it destroyed somebody's career or something like that. Some director or somebody, right?
Who's the director?
Along those lines, yeah. I can't remember.
Jonathan Goldstein is the director, and John Francis Daly.
Yeah, I heard the movie was so bad that it was like a nightmare shoot.
No, there's a film coming out 2023. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry. No, the one I'm talking about is 2000. Yeah, that was bad. But there is one coming out 2023. Martin Range is in it. So yeah, I made a mistake. So the one I just there is a Dungeons and Dragons movie coming out 2023 with Ansel Egahart or whatever his name is, but that's not obviously. And the one that was terrible was 2000. So just before this movie.
Yeah,
that was a bad one with Martin Range of the Wayans brothers and
right. So I'll bring up
Jeremy Irons. Jeremy Irons' character was so bad in that movie.
Jeremy Irons' character.
Brothers. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the rumors that they brought in an intimacy coach and warning signs that they're trying to make Lord of the Rings more like Game of Thrones?
Oh, well, very against it, man.
People here's the thing.
Here's the thing, though. Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings are two. Granted, they are both kind of set in the fantasy genre. But here's the thing, Ace. I don't go off rumors. I go off fact. Now, if this is true,
Why did he sex scenes in Lord of the Rings? Why?
Well,
Like,
now here's the thing. We have not laid an eye on a single scene of this series thus far. We have only seen some concept art, and that is about it. Now, if this does take place during the Second Age,
it's pretty violent age.
it is a very violent period in the lore of Middle Earth.
Yeah.
So the violence in that particular aspect would be appropriate, but
But it's not really among humans and stuff. That's the thing.
it's mostly amongst the elves. Now, here's the thing:
Yeah.
there is a love story in the Silmarillion between a mortal and an elf.
That's true. That's true.
So, and now if they decide to have, here's the thing: I'm fine with certain degrees of artistic license being taken. So if it's in the context of the relationship with in the terms of the relationship or the love story that takes place in the Silmarillion, I will give them some leeway there. But if they are doing nudity and so on just for the sake of nudity, then yes, I am against that. But again, these are rumors; it is not fact. So anyway.
Yeah, well, it'll change the vibe of what Lord of the Rings is.
Yeah,
that is
it's
true.
meant for kids. It was actually meant for kids.
Well, Lord of the Rings to me is escapist. That's what it's all
that
about.
is true.
It's escapist. And it's one of those movies where I've watched it for years and years and years and years. The first copy I had was a VHS of Lord of the Rings. I've watched that movie many, many times over the years. It's comfort food. That's what it is. Every time I sit down and set aside the time to watch it, I have a good time watching it.
Yes.
Not to say that nudity would detract from that. I like Game of Thrones quite a bit too. I don't know if you guys have seen it. But I like it. I like Game of Thrones, but all I'm saying is it takes kind of a certain purity away from it, where Game of Thrones is all about death and dark, and you have some of that in Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings is basically about a hero overcoming evil and darkness and so on. Lord of the Rings is about personal ambition and greed, right? So I don't know. I mean, could you have nudity in something like Star Wars, right? That would be the counter question. I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know if it would necessarily fit. I do want to bring up Elysium's comment here because I do know what he's talking about. True. And to be fair, the Silmarillion has sections where they allude, granted they do not show, but they allude to Numenor being very like Game of Thrones, and the sexual debauchery was prevalent in Numenor before the fall. So
if it's on Amazon, there's a good chance. There's a good chance.
If that's what they're going for, again, I say I'm okay with that. If they want to portray it, if they really want to show it, I'm fine with that because it does add to the whole downfall of the.
I just don't want sex to be. I just don't want sex to be one of the main things of the show. Like this, because Game of Thrones sex is like one of the main things of the show.
Yes, obviously, because let's be honest here. Martin is a bit of a perp. Let's just be honest.
Martin always says his stuff is inspired from Lord of the Rings. This is bullshit.
That guy's a goofy guy. Have you ever seen an interview with that guy, George Martin?
I've actually seen several. He's
a goofy guy. He's kind of a funny guy. That guy.
Well, not to mention
I don't know. He coined a term called, I think it was sex position, where you give a boring plot point during a scene like that. Yeah, that was his idea behind it.
But and I'll bring up Ace's comment here real quick, just a second. Lord of the Rings, fun escapism. Yes, Game of Thrones, cynical guys writing because he's hung out on Aragorn's tax plan. LOL, joking. Ace, that's a good one. But
tax plan.
You know, Zach, you hit it right on the head with the comment that you made. The Lord of the Rings, it was escapism. It was fun. Now there was tension to it. But here's the thing. If we look back, because it's been 20 years. 20 years this month. 20 years ago this month. Fellowship of the Ring came out. Now, what happened just a few months prior in September of 2001?
Oh, yeah.
9/11. People were looking for something like this. That's why Harry Potter was so popular. That's why Lord of the Rings was so popular. It was escapism. It was fun. It was black and white. It was good versus evil. And it was something that everybody could get on board with. That's why it hit. And that's why Harry Potter hit as much as it did. And, for me, I can speak to this. Me and Mother Ambassador, we saw the trailers for this. And granted, like I said, I grew up watching like Dragon Slayer and Kroll and the Dark Crystal and the Conan movies and so on from the 1980s and the 90s and so on. But it was for the longest time, we went through a dry spell where you didn't get fantasy movies any. You got any you did, they weren't particularly good. This was based on something I was somewhat familiar with. And for me, as a early 20s person, a guy in his early 20s, this was right up my alley. I mean, we went to see this in theater. We went opening weekend.
Me too.
The theaters were packed. Absolutely packed. And the crazy thing was, a lot of the people that I worked with at the time, they weren't like super into reading, but this was right up their alley. And it not only appealed to the hardcore fans, and there is a very large and very loyal fan base for Lord of the Rings, but it also appealed to the general public because it was a simple story about good versus evil, and it's something that we needed then.
Yeah.
Without too many horrors too. I mean, and you, Ambassador, you kind of, I know my taste. I like a little bit of grit to my movies, generally speaking. But there's something to be said about the comfort of a movie like a Star Wars or like a Lord of the Rings or a Marvel film, where you know that the good guys are going to win at the end, right? There's a certain comfort to that. It kind of puts you at ease in a certain way. And, when you're watching something like Game of Thrones, which is a pretty interesting comparison. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like a modern example of a Lord of the Rings type thing. With Game of Thrones, there's that underlying anxiety, like this is not going to work out good for anybody.
Yeah, who's going to die? It's like, who's going to die?
Yeah, who's going to die next?
Yeah.
And it's fun. I can dig that sort of thing too. But the comfort nature of a film like this is why it should be protected. It really should be protected. I was appalled by the Hobbit trilogy, just to be honest with you. I was appalled.
They took liberties with that.
I will tell you, here's the crazy thing, Zach. I had read The Hobbit. I read when I was in high school, and I've read it again since then. And I was okay with them doing a film adaptation.
Too.
But what they did with it just didn't sit right with me. I mean, when me and a buddy of mine, we went to see An Unexpected Journey and the Desolation of Smaug. And
that was the best one. I have to say that's the best one.
I felt so cheated by the ending of Desolation of Smaug. I mean, literally, I walked out and I was like,
that's probably the best one of the three.
What the hell did they do at the end of this movie? You left it on. I have to wait a year for the next.
You're so right about
that. It's stupid. What the thing is, you know what's stupid about that? The first 10 minutes they kill him off in the third movie. Just kill him off in the second movie.
Like what the freaking hell?
So you said I think I mentioned The Walking Dead on your show before, Ambassador, right?
Oh, Walking Dead.
So did you watch Walking Dead, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm still watching it now.
So you remember what they did with Negan when he killed the guy with the bat, and you had to wait a year to see who he even hit. That's the same type of thing. You can't do that and make us wait a year. You can do that with a TV show and make us wait till next Sunday. But if they took out the ending. I mean, that's crazy, right?
Well, here's the thing. I actually, there's a channel I watch on a regular basis. It's the channel's name is just the name of the young lady that runs it, Lindsay Ellis, and she did
nostalgic chick, the
nostalgia chick, but she just goes by her proper name, Lindsay Ellis now. She did a 3-part expose on the making of the Hobbit trilogy. Here's the kick in the head. Now here's 2 kicks in the head. Originally, Guillermo del Toro was going to do the Hobbit.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
But here's the double kick in the head. It should have been. It was going to be either 1 or 2 movies. They decided to stretch it out into 3. That's why
there was interference. There was
so much freaking.
Why did they do that? They had Peter Jackson. They made Lord of the Rings. There was probably barely any interference at all. And then when they had to do the Hobbit, they're like, come on, seriously, this guy.
Yeah,
it's a joke.
Does Aaron only accept? Zach, I'm not following you at all. Aaron, you can answer that.
It's a joke.
Okay. Oh, Aaron World Order. Okay, I got you.
I got the joke.
No, he'll. Yeah, I'll bring a basis comment here real quick.
No, you're always anybody's allowed in.
Yeah,
all the Aarons have banded together.
Yeah,
take over.
Yeah. Lindsay
Ellis, what I hate about this.
Yeah, Lindsay Ellis, formerly Nostalgia Chick, did 3 great videos about the Hobbit trilogy. She went all the way to New Zealand, and even got one of the dwarf actors to answer some questions. Yeah,
they had a good cast too, man. That's a great cast. They had who did they have? Sylvester McCoy was Ragged Ash.
Yeah, they had a great cast for that. I mean, you got granted,
the Hobbit trilogy had a good cast, man.
Yeah, you had the main guy, the Bilbo guy, was good. What's his name?
Martin Freeman's awesome.
Martin Freeman. Awesome. Martin Freeman is this. I mean, okay. Here's the thing.
We all liked Bilbo, right?
Yes,
I would say that we all liked him.
Martin Freeman as Bilbo was honestly the highlight of that film, of all 3 films. Honestly,
I think the actor who played Thorin wasn't bad either. I think
the actor who played Thorin, he was. I mean, okay. In all honesty, the cast itself, they did a good job.
They weren't the issue.
But the structure of the movies themselves was, particularly the second and third films,
they were trying to recapture the Lord of the Rings magic. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, no, they're not. And and here's the thing. I would have been perfectly happy, and we'll get back on the main topic, guys. Don't worry. Just give us a few minutes to go down this rabbit hole a little bit. I would have been perfectly happy if they had done The Hobbit as one 4-hour movie, or done it as a 2-parter, because you didn't. There's the Hobbit itself is not as long as even the Fellowship of the Ring. The Fellowship of the Ring, just by itself, if I remember the breakdown correctly, is longer than The Hobbit. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing is, if you look,
The Hobbit is actually a short book.
Yes, it's a very short book. It was meant to be. It boggles my mind. I mean, they added all the extra stuff in with Sauron and everything. And yeah, that was that fight scene in the Battle of 5 Towers between Elrond and Saruman and Galadriel fighting the Nazgul was cool. Don't get me wrong, it was cool as hell, but at the same time, I'm like, is this really warranted? Do we really need this?
They did that for the people that never read the Hobbit books. They did that for people that never read the Hobbit books and only watched Lord of the Rings movies. That's why they did it.
Yeah,
see, it kind of shows you how dumb some of the people in Hollywood are.
Yeah,
I mean, we think that just because they get to, we think that just because they get to make movies that they're smart. That's not the case at all. We're talking about half of these people are somebody's cousin, some famous person's cousin, right? That's what right? Who's directing, right? Just because they have a famous producer, father-in-law or uncle or something.
Yeah. And the crazy thing was, I would have loved to have seen Guillermo del Toro's version of The Hobbit. I mean, you look at some of them. You look at some of them. You look at some of the movies he's done. I mean, don't get me wrong. Peter Jackson did the best he could with the train wreck that he was given in terms of the Hobbit trilogy. And you look at the making of stuff, and the poor guy just looks like he is completely and utterly checked out. He's like, I've already done 3 of these. I have to do 3 more. Plum, someone please shoot me in the head right now. But when you see the making of for the Lord of the Rings, he is full of vim and vigor, and he is enthusiastic, and he is on board, and he is just absolutely in his element.
Well,
and you see, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing to go back and look at, because for them it was a passion project.
No doubt about it. I would highly recommend that you check out a documentary called "They Will Love Me When I'm Dead" on Netflix. I just saw it the other day. Phenomenal.
Okay.
It's about Orson Welles directing his last film. Tons of amazing.
You just said the magic word. You just said the magic. I think
you will have a great time watching it. You will have a great time,
dude. Zach, that one project I messaged you about a couple of weeks ago.
Which I would love to do a couple of them, by the way. I just don't know if I can do.
No, I'm not. Let me clarify that real quick, being you're right here. I'm not expecting you to be there every single week. This is going to be something that I'm actually collaborating with another channel on. The other channel, Aaron, it's a 4 Nerds.
Yeah,
they're bringing on other channels to do weekly or bi-weekly content for their channel. It's called the 4 Nerds Network, and they're allowing smaller or bigger content creators and anything to come on and do their own stuff. And the thing that I pitched to Dawson, Aaron, was this thing that I'm going to be calling Ambassador's Ultra Retro Reviews. I'm going to be going back to doing stuff. I'm going to be doing stuff like before, like the 1980s and 90s, going back to the 1930s and 40s and coming up.
Yeah.
So that's
Stranger. That's a great movie. Have you seen that?
What is it?
The Stranger. That's an old one. That's an Orson Welles movie.
I don't think I've ever heard of that one, to be honest with you. I'll have to look into it.
I heard of it. I probably haven't seen it, but I heard of it.
Yeah. Write this down, though. Here's the documentary. It's called
They'll Love Me When I'm Dead. I'm dead.
You will have a tremendous. It was a phenomenal, just beautifully done documentary. But I only bring it up to make this comparison. Is it really shows the struggle and deterioration of Orson Welles. And he maintains a tremendous composure throughout the documentary. He's a very funny guy. He's laughing throughout the documentary when we see clips of him. But he's a guy who was basically exiled from Hollywood and had to come in and kind of rebuild from scratch as a total renegade from what used to be a legend. And you kind of see the progression of his career where certain films knocked him off. What was the one where he played the police sergeant?
I honestly don't remember. I mean,
it's A Touch of Evil. Yeah.
Oh, the reason I remember, the crazy thing is, the reason I know that movie? Get Shorty.
Another good one. That's another good one.
I love that. That is one of my favorites from like from the mid 90s. I mean, that's one I might have to do a review on, because it's based on a great short story by Elmore Leonard, and of course it's got an absolutely stellar cast. I mean, you got Gene Hackman, Rene Russo, Delroy Lindo, John Travolta.
Don't forget
Dennis Farina, Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito, one of my all-time favorites. Right, DeVito's great.
Oh yeah. If you do not like Danny DeVito, I question your grasp on reality. I truly do.
But here's why you should watch it, though. Here's why I brought it up. I mean, there's such a great comparison between him and Peter Jackson, because because Orson Welles, the documentary shows how he was trapped by Citizen Kane. It trapped him. It ruined his future potential, because he could never. How can you do something after you've directed the best film of all time? It's impossible. So it seems like Jackson had that same thing, where he directed, in my opinion, some of the best films of all time. I mean, phenomenal production value. We've talked about the story. Amazing. The CGI holds up great for when they were made. And
the early 2000s and into 2021, it still looks great.
He could never top himself, right?
No.
That's why every studio tries to hire him, always thinks, we're to get a Peter Jackson like movie like that, and it's not the case.
Well, and here's the other thing too. A lot of studios try to capture that lightning in the bottle of the Lord of the Rings with their own properties that they bought up. I mean, you look at like in the early 2000s, you had that one fantasy film that had Jeremy Irons and Rachel Weisz's voice. Aragorn, yeah. Now, I don't dislike that movie. It actually is it also has John Malkovich and it also had Robert Carlyle in it. I honestly, it's campy, I know, but there's a certain charm about it that I enjoyed. I would have actually, I mean, obviously it didn't do particularly well at the box office, so they never were able to continue on with the.
They tried Narnia. The cops of Narnia tried it. I mean, I didn't think they were bad movies. Some of the Narnia movies. It's difficult to try and adapt certain types of films. Now, the issue with the Narnia books, it reads more like an anthology more than it does a series per se. It does.
Here's the real bitch: is the Golden Compass.
Yeah, the Golden Compass. Yeah.
Now here's the thing. I've got to get back to the series. HBO Max.
All right.
Here, HBO Max has they've actually picked they've done this. They're doing a series currently called His Dark Materials that's based on those books and everything, the Golden Compass and so on. And I actually watched. Yeah, it's on HBO Max right now. I got through like a good chunk of the first season, and unfortunately, I haven't had time to get back to it. But it actually is quite good. It's got a strong cast. It's got a very interesting cast. I can't remember everybody that's in it per se. But I will say this: I like the series better than I did the movie.
Yeah, it has a great cast.
Because that movie was just
has the actress who played Laura Kinney from Logan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I forgot about it. Yeah, she plays Lyra Belacqua. In the series. But we look back on Lord of the Rings, we look back on particularly on Fellowship, and we see such a strong beginning. And if the movie, like I said a little while ago, had not hit the way it did, it would have tanked the entire franchise. But at the same time, it came out at just the right time in the history of the world and what the United States was going through at the time. It was what everybody needed at that time. And you mean, as I was saying,
it's almost like a metaphorical representation of the way forward for the nation. It's going to be a long journey, but we'll get there.
Well, and not only that, I would almost parallel Lord of the Rings with the first Star Wars. Because think about when the first Star Wars came out in 1977. We were just barely getting out of Vietnam. Now, granted, I wasn't even alive at the time. I've just done a lot of research on that period in history.
Dark and gritty films.
Yeah, a lot of dark and gritty, not very hopeful. Most of the sci-fi that was out was very dystopian and so on. Yeah, very grim, very dystopian. And then here comes this little film by this guy named George Lucas, who had only done like one or two other films before this. American Graffiti, an all-time favorite of mine. Love that film, love it to death. But
and THX
1138. I don't know if I told you this, Zach. I don't know if it's still on there, but I actually had the chance to watch, and it was the director's cut. It was Lucas's cut of THX
with his extra 5 minutes that they stole from him, right?
Yeah,
isn't that the story?
It was on, at least when I watched it, it was on HBO Max. I actually sat down and I watched it, and I was like, I get what he was trying to do here, and it's a dense film, but it's very enjoyable, and it's actually got a lot of rewatchability to it. But with what Lord of the Rings did, I think it echoed something similar that the first Star Wars, the original Star Wars, did for its time. As
Star Wars, I'm sure, felt like a shot of adrenaline to moviegoers. That's what it felt like. It totally charged them up like a battery.
And created one of the most rabid
that's what Lord of the Rings is.
Fandoms ever. Well, but here's the thing: Lord of the Rings already had a very strong fan base as it was.
That's true.
And
they did the same with Star Wars. They kind of cultivated that by going out to sci-fi conventions, and they also put out the novelization ahead of time.
Yes. But here's the thing. The books had existed for decades upon reprints upon reprint upon reprint. It's one of the most reprinted books in the history of literature, for heaven's sakes, next to maybe only the Bible.
Yeah.
And it had a very strong, a very loyal, and a very dedicated fan base. Now, say what you will about the animated versions of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. They're good for what they are. They're okay for what they are.
Yeah.
But
never saw them.
I think I saw the animated version of Return of the King, and I may have seen bits and pieces of The Hobbit, but I never saw the Lord of the Rings itself.
I didn't see the Hobbit one. I saw
the animation is okay. It was done by Ralph Bakshi, if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
And his animation style just doesn't sit particularly well with him. I don't have a personal beef or bias against the guy or anything. His animation style it doesn't work for me. But what we got with The Lord of the Rings was a live action adaptation of something that people had been reading quite literally for generations. I mean, Tolkien had been working on this going all the way back to when he was when he served in the British military during World War I, for heaven's sake. And he had pieced this together over years and years and years, and then he finally sat down and he wrote the whole thing out. And it caught on like wildfire for the time. And people were hungry for it. And he was Tolkien was, as I understand it, he was a very humble, a very quiet man. He didn't seek out notoriety or anything, but he was very appreciative of the public's reception for his work. And I think the same could be true to a degree for Jackson. He wanted to do the best job. I mean, everybody that worked on these films wanted to do the best job. They wanted to pay their own respects to Tolkien because they regard him as such a visionary, as a truly great mind. And he influenced a lot of people, and in the best possible way.
Did George R.R. Martin take the RR from Tolkien? Did he totally steal that?
I don't know.
I honestly don't know.
I just did it too. I already feel like a badass.
I don't know if he necessarily did, but I will say this. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien That's a very that is a very badass name compared to George, whatever the two R's stand for, Martin.
Yes, it
I think they're fake, dude. I think they're fake. Who has two middle names? I think George R. R. Martin's are fake R's.
The guy has to finish his book.
You see, look, I changed my name.
Yes, I see what you did there, Zach.
Zach R.R. Yes.
Zach
but R.R. Dude, he totally stole that just to like copy the guy's name. I think so.
That's a very distinct possibility.
I'll find out now. I'll try to find out now on my phone.
So, and I'll bring up Ace's comment here real quick. The Basque Lord of the Rings is decent for what it is. I took even part of the orc chant from the beginning of the Battle of Helm's Deep and used it as the basis for a guitar riff in a song I wrote. Cool. I think I heard about them doing this epic rap battles, Tolkien versus Martin. I think I actually saw that, Ace. I'm gonna have to look that up after we're done. But you know.
Okay, so here's his name. This is early life. This is the Wikipedia. His name was George Weaving Martin. So the first R is correct, but at 13 years old, he adopted the name Richard at 13 years old.
As a secondary middle name?
Yeah.
What? That's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Who adopts a secondary middle name?
His parents allowed him, I guess. I guess his parents allowed him.
I would never do that. I mean, well, I might potentially but the only reason I would do it was to pay respect to my maternal grandfather, because don't get me wrong, I love my name is what it is. It pays respect to both my maternal grandfather and my father. If I were to add in an extra initial, I don't think anybody in the family would blink an eyelash per se, but at this point in my life, I'm 43 years old. Why change what's already good as is? So, but you know,
I've got some Lord of the Rings points I want to bring up.
The floor is yours, Zach. By all means, please.
Saruman, an excellent villain for the first movie. I mean, excellent
even for the
villain.
second movie.
It gets even better at that point, yeah.
Yes.
You know what? You know what Saruman is? He's what Sauron is when Sauron fell to the evil side for Morgoth or Malkor, wherever you want to say.
Yes,
he's
that's
a Maiar.
That's why Saruman won't be reincarnated.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because of his actions. And I guess what they said is his soul will just wander Middle Earth, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. I can't remember exactly.
That's why they had to destroy the ring.
I'm not as book literate.
That's why they had to destroy the ring. Because if he didn't destroy the ring, Sauron could have come back in a physical form.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, that's a good connection to make too, is the similarity between Voldemort and Sauron.
Yeah.
Yes. But let's be honest here.
Both villains, very biblical in nature.
Well, Saruman would have killed Voldemort in a heartbeat, though.
Well, but here's the thing.
I agree with that.
Let me ask you a question, Zach. Have you ever read the book? It's called this is the unofficial name for it. It's the Bible of Middle Earth. It's called the Silmarillion. Have you ever even heard of it?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
I would highly advise you go read it.
Yeah.
You can probably find it on digital. You may even potentially be able to find it on Audible. I'm not sure. But
here's my goal for reading. I don't read enough. It's unfortunate. Yeah. I've set a goal to myself where I'm trying to read one chapter of a book every 2 days.
Okay.
I think that's a good number. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Totally.
So that's my goal for it.
I would definitely put the Silmarillion on your reading list, particularly if you are as much of a fan of Lord of the Rings as a lot of us here are. Now, I will say this: it is and I've made this comment throughout the evening, throughout the stream. It is a very dense and a very lore-heavy book.
Yeah,
but
it's gonna make you think.
It is a great read. It is packed with with so many great characters and great story and storylines, and just the overall, it is a great lead in. I mean, if you've read The Hobbit and you've read The Lord of the Rings, you owe it to yourself to read the Silmarillion. I say that with all sincerity. I mean, honestly, The Hobbit does fit in there in a manner of speaking because there are similar characters, and you do come across the One Ring, obviously, in The Hobbit. But the Silmarillion really sets up the universe. And you want to talk about a lot of really heavy biblical themes. You think Sauron is a badass?
He's nothing.
Wait till you meet
his master. The first Dark Lord.
Wait till you meet the antagonist for the Silmarillion. Being, let me put it this way, a being that is pretty much a metaphor for Lucifer. For Satan.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Dark Lord, right? Just in terms of representation on screen, Tom Riddle, I would say, is another
kind of, yeah.
You know, I would say.
But the difference is this guy is kind of a god. This guy's kind of a god.
Yeah, more god.
With Tom Riddle's connection with snakes and serpents.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah, I agree there. But here's the thing. But Zach, here's the thing. In terms of direct connection, Tolkien pulled very heavily from the fall of Satan to create the lore of the character called Melkor, aka Morgoth.
Sauron is not the first Dark Lord.
No, Sauron was actually a servant of. Sauron was a servant of
one of the other gods, Morgoth. Before he was a servant of another god when he was good, and Morgoth corrupted him, like Sauron corrupted Saruman.
I think you're right. Yeah, because, but yes, here's the thing. Sauron when he was good, he was a beautiful looking Maya, whatever it was called. Was it Maya? Yeah. Maya. Mm-hmm. He was beautiful. He was good. He looked really nothing bad. When you get corrupted, their skin turns dark. They become very dark in their eyes. Yeah, that's what happened to Sauron. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. So, like I said, Zach, I would highly encourage you.
Yeah.
I do prefer a human villain, to be honest with you. I mean, in terms of talking about Satan and demonic and stuff like that, I would say Palpatine is a demonic character. And in a certain way, I would make the comparison that Sauron is like the dark side of the Force, and we have people utilizing that power or that promise of power, and you basically get the Sauron experience through Christopher Lee's character.
Yes, because here's the thing. If you know the lore of Lord of the Rings of Middle Earth, Saruman, Sauron, Gandalf, Radagast the Brown, they are Tolkien's representations of angels, essentially, but they're angels that are more active in the world.
Gandalf.
They're emissaries of the lords or the gods of Middle Earth.
You know how powerful Gandalf is? And the Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings movies, he barely used anything in those movies.
Yeah, in the books, the depiction, the displays of power that he shows in the books are much grander and much more powerful than what you see in the movies, because Jackson didn't want Gandalf to be just so overpowered that you completely rob the story of any tension whatsoever. So they change, and we'll get into this a little bit.
And Gandalf was also told not to use his full potential by was it Iruru? Was that his name? They weren't allowed.
It was either it was probably Iluvatar or one of the other gods.
The creator, right? The creator, right?
Yeah, Iluvatar. Well, Iluvatar is the creator of Middle Earth.
They're more like guides, and they're supposed to be guides, more like that. That's what Gandalf is.
Well, like I said, the beings like Sauron, Saruman, Gandalf, and so on, they're more like warrior angels in a manner of speaking, to certain degrees.
They're there to make sure Sauron's not up to no shit.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
But especially with the first movie, with Fellowship, Gandalf acts more as a guide and so on for Frodo and the rest of them. He's kind of he's the wise old man to get you out the door and on the journey, essentially, especially in The Hobbit. But in terms of Fellowship, he is the de facto leader of the Fellowship, while Aragorn acts as his second.
So yeah.
And, I will say this. There is not a more iconic scene to kind of get back into the movies here, or into the movie itself. There is not a more iconic scene that has been ever put to film than Sir Ian McKellen in full Gandalf wardrobe standing on a fake bridge uttering that line of dialogue to a golf ball.
Yeah.
To a golf ball, because they obviously didn't have any sort of mock-up for the Balrog at the time. So he said all that incredible dialogue to a golf ball, essentially, so that they could have an eye line for where he would be looking. And
you shall not pass. That's a great line.
I can still recite his dialogue from that scene.
You know what made it better? Frodo reacted to it.
Yeah, Frodo's okay. I gotta do it, guys. Please indulge me for a minute. And I cannot give the same gravitas. I am not as good of an actor as Sir Ian McKellen is, but I will do my best here. I am a servant of the sacred fire, wielder of the flame of Arnor. The dark fire will not avail you. Flame of Udun, go back to the shadow. You shall not pass. Okay, that's that.
And Gandalf is the only person in that group that can actually fight a Balrog.
Yeah. I mean, and to see the battle at the beginning of Two Towers, and we'll get into that next week when we discuss Two Towers. But I cannot think of a better opening. Oh my gosh. Oh my freaking gosh, that battle is so freaking epic. But just to see just the beginning of it, and then you see the absolute gut-wrenching expression on Frodo's face when Gandalf loses his grip and falls down into the chasm, and they all assume, well, Gandalf's dead. And they're all sitting outside of Moria.
He should have stayed dead, by the way.
No, there's a reason why he comes back.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Zach. You're going against Tolkien, and with all due respect, you don't go against Tolkien.
I made that decision. Have an opinion.
You can have an opinion. That's fine.
I do.
But I disagree.
There's a reason he comes back.
There is a reason why he does come back. Yes.
The creator revives him. He did die. He did die.
I'm not alone.
His job was not done. That's why he comes back.
Again, I say
that's why some people compare to Jesus. Some people compare him to Jesus. That's why.
I don't know if I would go that far.
No, there's some people. I know, but there's some people that say that. Because technically he does die. He does die in that battle, but he does come back because he still has a purpose.
Yes, he does. Yeah, he does. He does have a very distinct purpose because he is meant to be the marshaling force for the people of Middle Earth to rally behind.
Well, doesn't he only become the white because Sauron?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Saruman. Yeah, because Saruman becomes corrupted, believes himself,
and that's why Gandalf becomes the White. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Saruman has fallen, and Saruman was originally the leader of the Order of Wizards.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah.
But and I will say this: the interplay between Saruman and Gandalf, and you look at the pedigree of an actor like Christopher Lee, and you look at the pedigree of an actor like Ian McKellen. Both of them sirs, both of them knighted by Her Royal Highness the Queen, rightfully so. I will say they brought it for these roles. Now, I know neither one of them were spring chickens in these movies, any of them, but they were, for me, their performances are some of the best. And to see the sinisterness of Saruman be portrayed by a character, by an actor of the caliber of Sir Christopher Lee,
who knew Tolkien.
Knew him personally. Yeah, knew him well.
One of my favorite Saruman scenes from the first movie is when Saruman is trying to convince the mountain to kill the Fellowship, and and you've got Gandalf who is trying to convince the mountain, no, sleep, do not awaken, right, and so forth.
Yes. Yeah, that is a great,
which is interesting too, portraying great natural objects such as mountains as actual, somewhat living things, entities. Yeah.
Yes. Well,
very cool concept.
Well, the thing is, the magic system in Middle Earth is more subtle than what you see in other fantasy franchises. It's more what they would term as soft magic rather than what we would see in Harry Potter. That's more hard magic, more visceral, more
only certain dramatic. Beings have magic. Only certain people have magic in this.
Yes. Things. Yeah. The elves, obviously. Obviously the wizards of the Maiar, as they're known to us, as to those of us who say the lore of Middle Earth. Obviously Sauron, and various other beings as well. Well, in particular, the Balrog itself is a mystical creature.
Because a Balrog is like a demon, basically.
Yeah, essentially, it was a spirit. It was a servant of the gods of Middle Earth, that Morgoth. Because if you remember in the extended edition, it's referred to as a Balrog of Morgoth. And if you see the expression on Legolas's face when that name is uttered,
the last one.
Because the elves feared Morgoth so much because of all the devastation that he wrought upon them in the first and second and third ages. I mean, this was a being that you did not want to tangle with. He was very
That's why only
powerful.
Gandalf could face them. That's why only magic users could face a Balrog, specifically people like Gandalf.
Yeah. So, but honestly, to see, here's the crazy thing, and I remember this from the special features, the making of Fellowship, and they're talking about the chase, them being chased by the orcs in Moria,
and then the goblins also after. It was orcs and goblins, right?
I think they were categorized more as goblins more so than orcs because of their design and their posture and everything and how they functioned.
But I think they still technically are like servants of because all of them are servants of Sauron and Morgoth anyway, because they're all created by him
to one degree or another. Yes, because of course you get a very intimidating new breed of orc called the Uruk-hai that's created by Saruman.
With intelligence.
Yes, with intelligence, and they do not fear sunlight like orcs and goblins do. they can move in sunlight, as I think it's Aragorn says to Galadriel and her group there in Lothlorien. And can we just say Kate Blanchett as Galadriel? She did, you know, she only has 2 or 3 scenes in the whole film and just maybe a handful of scenes throughout the entire trilogy. But every scene that she's in, she delivers. Yeah. I mean, honestly, she does.
She's tremendous in every film. I mean, I'm still trying to get people to see the film Hannah with her. Really good movie. Anyway, I wanted
go ahead.
I wanted to bring up the music in the film because
Howard Shore,
the music really ties everything together very nicely. I mean, what comes to mind right off the bat is the Ring Wraith theme song. Dun 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 dun.
Oh yeah.
And
or I guess is that the Mordor theme? Dun 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 dun.
Yes.
Right.
Or your Saruman theme, same thing basically. Yeah.
Well,
really good. I mean, just all of it is great. The soundtrack is a phenomenal soundtrack.
And it's the crazy thing is, it's all orchestral.
Yeah,
it's one of the. If I, give me a minute. I'm going to do some research. Y'all carry on with everything while I do this.
The soundtrack, man. From the beginning, and then like when they go to when they show the Hobbits, a calming, peaceful sound music.
Yep.
And then we see the Ring Wraiths with the Nazgul and that theme music. That music, it's like the eerie. It was like an eerie song, and then you see where Saruman or Mordor with that song, where it's like they're preparing for like eventual battle and stuff. Oh.
Well, they were actually formidable opponents.
Yeah,
I mean, that's another thing that they did well. Where you have in a lot of movies, grunt soldier characters who, don't stand a chance. These guys, on the other hand, you better look out.
Yurkai? Yes, yeah.
No, I'm talking about the Ring Wraiths.
Oh, the Ring Wraiths.
You better fucking look out when those guys are coming after you.
Yeah, one advantage, right? They can't really be killed.
The only way the Ring Wraiths could actually be killed is if the One Ring itself was destroyed.
Yes,
because
or the other way, like in the third movie, the prophecy. I can't be killed by a man.
That was specifically for the Witch King of Angmar. That wasn't for any of the. That was just for the leader.
There's a belief. There's a belief in Lord the second sequel to the video game. Once Sauron's defeated, that the Ring Wraiths, because obviously when Sauron's defeated, finally the ring is burnt in the lava. That the Ring Wraiths and Nazgul, the original kings, they're finally at peace.
That's a distinct possibility, I guess. I mean, who knows?
I mean, the Witch King himself did so much conquering in Sauron's absence. When Sauron wasn't there, he did a lot of conquering for him.
The Witch King's a bad motherfucker.
The Witch King,
yes,
the Witch King can handle. The Witch King can handle Gandalf. That's
the scene where he shows up and he removes he's riding a dragon. He removes his sword. It catches fire.
That's it. Return of the King. Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you do in that situation? You're running for your life, and this guy comes on a dragon with a flaming sword.
You won because you cannot beat him. You would not be able to.
And you know what I found interesting too is the smoke was being sucked into the sword. If you pay attention to that scene,
I did,
which is very cool looking.
I'll say this: when we're on top of when Aragorn goes leave to find some like fire and food, right? And the Nazgul, they all cornered him, right? Oh my
gosh, when the music starts to come up, particularly with the chorus.
Yeah.
And
I'll say this.
Hmm?
When Frodo puts on the ring, the Nazgul, you saw what the Nazgûl look like. They had crowns, right? They had crowns and stuff. It looks like they were in pain.
I don't know if they were necessarily in pain, but here's the thing. there's a reason why they're called the ring wraiths, because what is a wraith? It is a twisted, deformed, writhing form of life.
Yeah,
they're scary.
That is,
they are scary.
They're unnatural. That's the thing. They are unnatural, and what Frodo sees is their true physical visage with when he puts on the one ring. And I have to say this. The effect that they used for when Frodo puts on the ring and he's in the ring realm, for lack of a better term, no pun intended, and everything is blacked out. But when he sees the Nazgul in their true form, now the wraith that stabs Frodo, that is the Witch King.
Yes, it is.
And here's, I love the whole contrast of the wraiths who are pure evil appearing as white, almost angelic beings, but when Aragorn comes in with the fire and his sword and is fighting off the Nazgul, he appears as a black shadowy figure. It really goes to show Sauron's perspective on the world, that he sees those that serve him as virtuous
evil
and right, but the rest of the world is dark and deformed when it's actually the parallel.
Sauron was always big on order. That's what corrupted him.
Well, yeah, because this is really laid out very nicely in the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
When Morgoth is taken off in chains by the lords of Middle Earth and cast into the void, Sauron's the one that takes up the mantle of Dark Lord. And he learned well from his master. He learned well from Morgoth. Yeah. But here's the thing. Even as powerful as Sauron is, he never really held a candle to Morgoth, because here's the thing. Morgoth is still out there imprisoned in the void, whereas Sauron, once the ring is destroyed, he's gone forever.
And Morgoth still has his physical form in the void.
Yep, exactly, because here's the thing. Morgoth was originally a lord of Middle-earth. He was a god of Middle-earth, but he was jealous. He was envious. This is all laid out in the Silmarillion. And like I said, Tolkien took a lot of inspiration from the Bible, in particular Lucifer's rebellion against God, because when you read the opening chapter of the Silmarillion, you're like, yep, this sounds pretty much like Lucifer's rebellion against God in the Bible. Even though it's only ever referenced in the Bible, it's in another... well, it's actually not even in a biblical book. It's more so in the book Paradise Lost. But that's more of that's not scripture. That was a work of pure fiction, essentially. But Tolkien took a lot of inspiration from...
And he was a religious man himself.
Not particularly. Now, his friend and him and C.S. Lewis were very good friends. C.S. Lewis was as I understand it, at least, he was a relatively devout Christian.
Yes,
a lot of the stuff that he wrote was for a Christian audience. I mean, the Chronicles of Narnia do have lot of... Yeah, well, the Chronicles of Narnia just in general, but yeah, with The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe especially, there is a lot of very heavy connection to Christian belief and dogma and so on. But what Tolkien did with the Lord of the Rings, and particularly with the Silmarillion, he used it more as inspiration, more than as direct interpretation, per se.
Kind of like J.K. Rowling did with her stuff. I don't know if she's religious at all, but like...
I honestly don't know, to be honest with you, but I would take more of what J.K. Rowling did as more as a work of pure fiction. Now, a very entertaining and a very good work of pure fiction, but still fiction, more or less. Now, I would say that she did draw some inspiration from Lord of the Rings in particular, with the whole idea of the Horcruxes for Voldemort. Obviously, those are somewhat of a
They're putting the kind of the
a metaphor,
a
metaphor for the One Ring, obviously.
Yeah.
So,
well, I would say more she copied the Bible. There just happens to be a parallel.
It could be true.
Well, here's the thing, though.
She's admitted that. She said that.
Okay. So, I haven't had a chance to really listen to any of her interviews or anything, so I haven't kept up on what she's done post Harry Potter and everything, to be honest with you. But
did you hear what I said about the ring wraiths? I think you were looking something up. I think would you agree that they have a particular presence as compared to any kind of other muscle type character in a film? There's a certain edge and a certain danger to them in a different way than, like, let's say, a droideka from Star Wars or something like that. The heavy.
They were not muscle because before Lord of the Rings, they did a lot of stuff for Sauron, so they're definitely not muscle.
I'm talking about the first movie.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing: the purpose of the ring wraiths specifically, in the aftermath of Sauron losing the One Ring, was to seek out the One Ring. That was their primary function, to locate and return the One Ring to Sauron. Yeah. As Gandalf said to Frodo. Remember that
they're connected to the ring. They're connected to the ring because of the Sauron's ring is to control everybody who had the ring. That even the rings, like in the beginning of the movie, that's where the nows go.
Well, Aaron, here's the thing: Sauron created the One Ring to dominate all the other rings that he had already created for the other races.
Yeah,
and that was its function and that was his goal, was to rule, to dominate, much like his master Morgoth did as well. And he did it exceedingly effectively. But when his physical form was destroyed by Isildur, the ring wraith's primary function became to seek out the One Ring, return it to Sauron himself.
Yeah. So, because Zach, and similar, the ring wraith, especially the Witch King, when Sauron still had his ring and wasn't involved in that war at the end of the Second Age, their first objective was to conquer. That's what the Witch King's first objective was to conquer. But when Sauron got defeated and the ring was still around, their new goal, their new mission, their new function was to capture the ring.
Yeah, essentially.
Well, my review is different than the both of your reviews. Your guys' reviews are of this film very much informational, lore-based, conceptual reviews. In terms, my eye, in terms of looking at this movie, is more based on the execution of the film, right, and what they were able to accomplish and what connected with me within the film, having not the level of knowledge that you have about Lord of the Rings.
Hopefully the Amazon series will help you with that, or a similar in book if you want to get into it.
I don't know if I want to. I think it might spoil the experience for me. There's a certain thing where if there's too much information out there, do I really want to seek it out? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
sure.
Like all the garbage about Star Wars that I know, does it help my viewing experience? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like all the dumb shit I know about Star Wars, all these goofy planet names and shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I get you. I understand. Believe me. As a wise man once said, much knowledge increases much sorrow.
What was
there's a certain thing to it, and I think I'm going to be very unpopular by saying this, but making Darth Vader into the main character for the prequels kind of steals all the mystique from the character. He's no longer as interesting.
No,
I found the lack of showing us his past. I thought that was actually better.
I can
you don't
understand
have to
that.
show me. right?
Honestly,
it changes the dynamic. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, and I can't necessarily say I disagree, but at the same time, to explore the dynamic of how a good man or a good person can be corrupted and destroyed, but then ultimately redeemed.
But we already got it essentially with a couple of lines. You don't know the power of the dark side. You have already. I need to save you. You already have. Right. That pretty much sums it up for me.
It's a matter of perspective, and that's fair.
No, my favorite movie is Revenge of the Sith out of all of them. Okay, so even still, right? I kind of feel in a certain way all the Anakin Skywalker we needed to meet was in those 1 or 2 minutes at the end of Return.
Again, that's fair. I'm
not saying is it fair, but would it be better that way?
I think there's an argument for both, honestly. I think not having all the backstory on Anakin does make his character more enigmatic and more interesting, absolutely. But at the same time, for me, a character's, it's kind of like what I said in that promo for Revan. A character's journey isn't just one particular part; it's the whole summation of their journey. And to see where, at least for me, to see where Anakin came from, to see his origin, as depending on your evaluation of the execution of those films.
I like the third one quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, as do I. And I will say this with all sincerity. The Clone Wars animated series did an excellent job of fleshing out Anakin's journey more fully, also fleshing out his relationship with Obi-Wan and with Padme and with the other individuals that had a prominent place in his life, particularly his.
Did you ever see the cut that was condensed all 3 films into one cut? Have you ever seen that one?
I can't say that I have, honestly.
Very interesting experience. I think the opening scene is Maul versus Qui-Gon. That's the opening scene of that particular cut.
Interesting.
So it begins with Obi-Wan losing his master and being stuck with the kid to train.
I'll have to.
Anyway,
honestly, I know you need to go with Zach, and I do. Zach, I do appreciate you popping in tonight, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. Always a pleasure having you on and everything, getting your intake and your input on this and everything on these films.
Thanks, man. Take it easy, guys. Yeah. Good to meet you, Aaron.
Yeah, you too. Take it easy.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Take it easy.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Take care.
We'll talk to you later. Whew. And folks, if you ever want to get a hold of Zach, he does have an account on Twitter. His Twitter handle was in in his avatar. So I've had a lot of great conversations with Zach. Have a lot of good collaborations with him. He has always got a great take, great insight. And for those of you that have channels of your own, you would do well and everything if he does have a particular niche of media and movies that he does focus on, but if you ever want to reach out to him, I would encourage you to do so, because I've had some really good conversations with Zach. I've had him on the channels numerous times over the last several months, and it's always been a pleasure to talk with him. So, but I think we're going to do maybe another 15, 20 minutes, Aaron, then we'll probably wrap up.
I want to talk about Boromir. Boromir Chauvin's character.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow, that was a great when he was introduced to Rivendell to his death. Wow. That got me emotional, seeing his death. That's what Lord of the Rings does with death scenes. The whole trilogy.
Yes. It kind of Boromir's character arc, while it is somewhat truncated, it's a very interesting journey. Now we do get a little bit more time with him in the extended cut of both Fellowship and the Two Towers, because we see the flashback scene with Faramir and with Boromir,
father,
and their father Denethor. But in Fellowship, what we see is a good man who only wants to do what is right by the people that he cares about, for Gondor, and wants to do right by his father, do right by his family, and all noble things. But sadly, we see just how truly insidious the power of the One Ring is.
Could do to a man,
what it can do to a man, like a noble man, a decent man. And to see the exchange between Frodo and Boromir there in the woods near the Argonath, it's very gut wrenching. But it's also very powerful because it is the impetus for Frodo to realize that he has to go on this journey, even though he doesn't go on it alone, as Galadriel suggests that he does so. And that scene in and of itself, you have a exchange of looks between Galadriel and Boromir when they first get into Lothlorien. And
because she knows,
and she knows exactly what is in Boromir's mind. And you have the exchanges, the conversations between Aragorn and Boromir, and
because he thinks he's the heir, because he has been told he's the heir to the throne, and his father's been defending Gondor for very good years. Because Gondor's always at war with Mordor, because Mordor's right on the border of Gondor.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's very gut wrenching to see a character like Boromir, who is a seemingly noble individual.
He's a good person. He's just too passionate. Too passionate.
But he's unfortunately misguided by his passion, by his devotion.
Because the Gondorians don't believe that the Gondor should believe that they should have the ring, but not destroy it. Have the ring for themselves, so they can use it against the enemy, which is a big no-no.
Well, because here's the thing: the ring serves no one but Sauron himself.
Only one person. Yep.
Yeah.
And Gandalf made that perfectly clear.
Yeah, and because Saruman himself fancies himself the next Dark Lord.
Saruman was going to betray Sauron. That was the plan for him.
Yeah, that was the whole reason. Yeah, the part of the reason to create the army of Uruk-hai was to destroy the world of man. But who do you think Sauron was going to go after next? He was going to go after Mordor. He was going to go after Sauron. And let's be honest here. Those Uruk-hai, they would have potentially wrecked Sauron's armies.
Oh yeah, because
they were a stronger, more vicious, more brutal version of orc, and I don't see the orcs that we see in Return of the King going up against those Uruk-hai and winning.
Except Gothmog, maybe. I don't know.
Well, even if he had both his arms, which he obviously didn't, no, I doubt the Uruk-hai would have made mincemeat out of Sauron's armies.
Yeah.
Actually, that'd be a really good one. Versus battle. But, of course, central at the center point of this entire movie is, of course, the ring itself, which is, granted, it's an inanimate object, but at the same time, it does have a will. It does have a character. I mean, it has
it contains a soul. Basically.
It contains a portion of Sauron's soul.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show what that soul can do, and we'll get more into this next week with the introduction of Gollum. But you see what the ring does to Gollum, and we do see.
I love the discussion in that Moria where Thrall says, "Oh, Bilbo should have killed him. And
it was a pity. It was a pity that Bilbo didn't want to kill him when he had the chance. And Gandalf says, "Pity is what stayed Bilbo's hand."
Yeah, because Bilbo saw Bilbo saw like the sadness and the pain in Gollum.
Yes, and Frodo himself will eventually see that same thing in his own interactions with Gollum as well. But granted, we see very little of Gollum, but really, what we see of him is very frightening, because the character of Gollum is meant to be frightening, but he's also meant to be kind of pitiful.
Gollum is what Frodo could have been if the ring totally corrupted Frodo.
Yeah, it would have done the exact same thing to Frodo.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. What is Sauron ultimately but a corrupter, a deceiver, a destroyer, much like his own master Morgoth?
He does it more than Morgoth, because I think Morgoth likes the battle more than Sauron, but yeah.
Yeah, that is true, but at the same time, Morgoth was a bit of a schemer as well. So, but with Sauron is very much the deceiver.
That's how the rings were started, because he was deceiving.
Yeah, essentially, because he wanted to rule life. He wanted to rule all life, and even though Boromir never puts on the ring even once,
even to get close to the ring. Yeah.
It works on him. Okay, and I have to bring this up in the extended cut during the council scene when Boromir gets really, really, really close to touching the ring, and Gandalf rises, puts his hand up, casts that shadow out, and he's uttering the black speech. The black speech of Mordor, and Elrod kind of chastises him for it. Says, "Never before has anyone heard that tongue here in Lodris," which is the Elven word for Rivendell.
Yeah.
And Gandalf says, "I beg no pardon, Lord Elrod. For if we do not succeed, the black speech will be heard in every corner of Middle Earth." And it just goes to show what a great job they did to give a completely inanimate object personality, but also give it a sense of dread and threat. And that's not an easy thing. I mean, really think about it. Never before have we had a completely inanimate object, essentially, have its own personality.
The thing is, we talk about Voldemort. The thing is, with Voldemort, we had the Horcruxes. The Horcruxes didn't do that to the Harry Potter or anybody like that. But the Horcruxes didn't do it to any of the three though, like the ring did.
No, the big thing for me was who's going to survive this first movie, because I had never read the books before I watched the movies.
It was definitely going to be it wasn't going to be Boromir. You could tell. The way they were setting up the movie. Yeah.
But the crazy thing was, Jackson and them paid more respect to Boromir than Tolkien did, because I think in a way they realized there was potential with that character to do more than Tolkien did with him.
Yeah, so I was gonna say this. When the Battle of the Uruk-hai ended the film, like basically at the end of the film, and Boromir was there laying dying, and Aragorn goes to him, and Boromir basically says, "I would follow you to the end, my brother, my king." That's when Aragorn,
my brother.
Yeah, go ahead. You can say
my brother, my captain, my king.
Yeah, that's when Boromir finally accepted him, that he's the king of Gondor, and that's when Aragorn finally got closer to believing, to accepting his accepting his destiny as the king of Gondor. That's when Aragorn finally knew He had to be king.
Yeah, and this is only the first stage of the journey.
Yeah, that played
what we have laying ahead for us.
That quote was a pivotal role in Aragorn's journey to becoming king.
Yes, it was very much so, and
that was a tragic. I love the slow motions of the death in each of the 3 movies. I mean, I know we're not going to do Return of the King, but Theoden's death, that got me too.
Oh man, yeah, that it's you really feel Boromir's sincerity in that scene.
Yeah,
you really feel his. This was a man that he at first had little regard for, but at the end,
he accepted him.
He accepted him for what he could potentially become, even though he would not live to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always liked the little touch of Aragorn taking Boromir's bracers as a memento, of the bond of friendship and brotherhood that they did forge, although brief.
He died, but he conquered his the corruption.
You retain what Aragorn said to Boromir. You retained your honor.
Yeah, exactly.
You died a noble death. Granted, you failed, but you still died a noble death protecting the hobbits. And I will say this: that has going to be one of the most badass final stands I have ever seen ever.
Oh yeah.
He took what 4 or 5 he took at least 4 or 5 arrows, and he still kept going. And then that big ugly head Uruk-hai, he gave Aragorn everything he could, and Aragorn took not only his arm, he took his freaking head, and I'm like, bite that, you ugly mother effer. I mean, I absolutely love the fact that in the extended cut, I think it's even in the theatrical cut. Okay, what they did with the extended cut is they added in the little extra squirts of blood when Aragorn cuts off that Uruk-hai's head, but they keep them out of the theatrical cut because it's just a little too much gore.
Yeah.
For the rating. Granted, it was rated PG-13, but that was primarily for violence and everything and so on. But it's Boromir went out like a boss.
Yeah.
Like an absolute utter boss.
That's one of the best death scenes ever. When you know you're gonna die, when you're dying, you're still able to take out some orcs, getting arrows shot at you. Like, awesome.
Yeah. But I hope
Sean Bean in every role he's in, he's so good at. And
I'm gonna make it an effort next year. I'm going to sit down and we'll watch Game of Thrones from start to finish.
He's in the first season. He's good at
Yeah, he's in the first season. I think his character dies at the end of the first season or something.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So, but guys and gals, I think we're going to go and wrap up for the night. But I want to thank you all for tuning in this evening, and I want to thank Aaron, and I also want to thank Zach for joining me this evening. And for those of you that will catch us on the replay, leave your comments below with your thoughts about Fellowship of the Ring. And as I mentioned, this is only the beginning of the journey. And we will be back. I will be back next week, so next Saturday night with part 2. The Two Towers. As of right now, I will set it up for the same time, 7 p.m. And I want to let you all know I will be going live tomorrow afternoon with an installment of Afternoons with the Ambassador, and I'll be bringing you all my reaction and discussion on the latest episode of Hawkeye.
Well, I just did that today.
Yeah, I'm going to try and catch your replay, Aaron, because I didn't get a chance to check it out.
Okay.
So, But
yeah, I think you're like a bit like I'm gonna spoil here. That's pretty much spoil that Kingpin is pretty much in it.
I think so too. I do. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. But there's a lot of there's some other stuff in there that I want to discuss as well.
Yeah.
But and also want to let you know next week I'll be back with Friday afternoon with the Council of Ones. We'll be coming out on the home stretch of our review of season 4 of Babylon 5. I'll also be back with another Christmas stream next Thursday. I haven't decided exactly yet what I'm going to do, but it'll be something special. It'll be something very Christmassy and something fun. So, I do want to send a shout out to a fellow YouTuber as well as Aaron, but also a gentleman that I was over on his channel before I came on here tonight with y'all, J-Man. If you're not familiar with him, he is a big comic book both theatrical and both physical fan. He does a lot of great discussions, a lot of great streams. And his channel is simply called J-Man. And if you are a comic book fan, just a pop culture fan in general, he does a great job. And I highly encourage you, if you're not subscribed to his channel, go give him a sub. And I also want to send a shout out to a fellow YouTuber that I've been streaming with for the last few weeks, the most meta of Metaverse. Great guy. He has a lot of really good takes on things. He has a good channel, and I want to get him to 100 subs before the end of the year. So if you are not subscribed to Metaverse, you can find him. He does follow me, and I follow him on Twitter.
Same with me. So
yeah. So go check out Metaverse's content. As I said, I highly recommend it. He is very passionate, very informed, and he's a lot of fun. So I really encourage y'all go check him out. So, anyway, but Aaron, what have you got coming up?
Nothing yet. Nothing yet. I'll probably come up with something. I just finished a Hawkeye spoiler episode 3 review. It's on my channel, AAWO or Order. I have nothing in the plans yet. I'm thinking of something, but obviously I'm gonna do another episode. I'm gonna do episode 4 stream, a Hawkeye. That's gonna be like probably next Saturday, maybe. I know I said I was gonna do it on a Thursday. Like I said I was gonna do it on Thursdays or Fridays, but I moved to Saturdays. I think it's just for better for me. So that's obviously that's in a week from now, but something may come up for me to do this week. I don't know yet.
Okay, fair enough.
So
anyways, folks, you all have a great night. I will see you all tomorrow afternoon, and of course, we'll see you next week. And until next time, have a great week. Have a very Merry Christmas. And until next time, these are the Ambassadors signing off.